Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. The war in Ukraine is happening now. It started a long time ago and it is still going on. It is a very difficult time for the country and its people. Every day there is fighting in different parts of the country. Many cities and towns are in danger from attacks. People are suffering. They need help from other countries. They need support to defend themselves and to live safely. The United States is one important country that helps Ukraine. It has sent money, food, and sometimes weapons to help Ukraine fight the war. This help is very important for Ukraine's ability to continue fighting. Without help from other countries, it is much harder for Ukraine. For some time, the help from the United States was not always sure. There were discussions and questions about how much help the U.S. would give. Sometimes the flow of help was slow or stopped. This situation made the war even more difficult for Ukraine. Leaders in Ukraine were worried about the future. Leaders in countries in Europe were also worried. It was an uncertain time. But recently, something surprising happened in the United States. The President of the United States is Donald Trump. President Trump made a big announcement that many people did not expect. His words changed the plan for American help to Ukraine. This change in policy is very important for everyone watching the war. Before this recent time, President Trump did not always seem to support sending a lot of help to Ukraine. His public statements were sometimes different. He talked about other topics related to Russia and the conflict. But now, his words and actions are different. He spoke in a new way about the war and about Russia's actions. He also made a new promise about helping Ukraine. President Trump spoke to people in his government and to the public. He said clearly that he was unhappy with the leader of Russia, President Putin. He said that President Putin does not tell the truth often. He said President Putin tells many lies. This was a strong and direct statement from President Trump. It showed a change in his view of Russia's leader. Following these comments about Russia, President Trump made the important announcement about Ukraine. He said clearly that the United States will send more weapons to help Ukraine. He said that Ukraine needs these weapons to defend itself because the fighting is very hard. This statement was a big change in the American plan for supporting Ukraine. Sending more weapons is a new direction for U.S. policy in this war. This sudden change from the United States is very important for Ukraine. It brings some hope, but it also brings new questions. Will this help continue for a long time? How much help will really come? What does this change mean for the direction of the war? What will other countries do now? This chapter is an introduction to this new situation. It tells you about the ongoing war in Ukraine and the sudden change in the United States' position. In the next parts of this story, we will look more closely at what President Trump said and why this change might have happened. We will also see how leaders in Ukraine and other countries reacted to this surprising news. The war is a serious and difficult situation, and now there is a new and important development from the United States. This development is significant for the future of Ukraine and for the world. We will learn more about this unexpected change and its effects in the chapters that follow. 2. A change of mind. President Trump spoke in public. He talked about the situation. He also talked about the leader of Russia, President Putin. President Trump said he was not happy with Mr. Putin. He felt unhappy with the things Mr. Putin said. President Trump said that Mr. Putin tells many lies. He said, "We get a lot of lies from Putin." He explained that sometimes Mr. Putin seems nice, but then the nice words do not mean anything. President Trump said he was getting tired of this. After talking about Mr. Putin, President Trump spoke about helping Ukraine. He said Ukraine needs help to fight. He said Ukraine needs weapons to protect itself. He promised that the United States would send more weapons to Ukraine. He said, "We will send them more weapons that we have." President Trump was speaking with people from the United States and Israel. He said that Ukraine is having a very difficult time now. He said they are being attacked a lot. They need to be able to defend themselves from these attacks. Then, President Trump said something specific. He said the United States would send 10 Patriot missiles to Ukraine right away. Patriot missiles are important weapons. They help to stop attacks from the air. This was a big change. Before this, the United States had stopped sending some weapons. Sending 10 Patriot missiles was a new decision. It showed that President Trump's mind had changed about helping Ukraine. This was different from his actions before. He promised to find other ways to send help too. People in Ukraine heard this news. They were happy to hear about the help, but they also thought about the number of missiles. 10 Patriot missiles is not a very large number, but it was a sign that the United States was willing to help again. President Trump's words about Mr. Putin were strong. His promise to send weapons was a big change in policy. It showed a new direction. This new direction was to give more help to Ukraine. The 10 Patriot missiles were the first part of this new plan. It was a clear message from President Trump. 3. The big attack. A very big attack happened. This attack was a key reason why the president made his new decision. It showed the serious problems Ukraine faces every day from the war. Kyiv, the capital city of Ukraine, was hit very hard by this attack. This happened last week during the night. The attack was not short. It lasted for 7 hours without stopping. It was a very long and difficult night for the people living in the city. The attack used a very large number of flying weapons. There were more than 550 drones and missiles. They came from Russia. This was a massive attack, one of the biggest seen recently. These drones and missiles flew over the city for many hours, causing noise and fear below. Stopping such a large number of incoming objects is very difficult, even with good defenses. It requires many defensive missiles to shoot down the threats. This big attack happened very soon after President Trump and President Putin talked on the phone. It was just hours after their conversation finished. The timing made the attack seem even more important and worrying to many people watching. The attack caused a lot of damage in Kyiv. It was very bad for the city and its people. Debris from the sky, parts of shot-down missiles or drones, fell onto buildings below. Some debris hit a school. This was very dangerous for the children and teachers who might be there. Cars parked in the streets caught fire and burned completely. Many windows in people's homes were broken by the force of the explosions. Balconies on buildings were also damaged, with concrete and glass falling to the ground. People in Kyiv felt very scared during this long attack. The constant sound of air raid sirens warning of danger and the noise of explosions was terrible. These attacks make daily life very difficult and dangerous for civilians living in cities across Ukraine. People often have to run and hide in shelters for many hours during the night. This causes fear and disruption. Russia has been attacking Ukrainian cities more and more often. These attacks on civilians are getting stronger and happening regularly now. Since the start of the year, there have been more attacks like this, hitting residential areas and important buildings far from the front lines. Because of these many attacks, Ukraine needs good air defense systems very much. Air defense systems are like a shield for the cities. They shoot down the incoming missiles and drones before they can hit the ground. Ukraine needs many missiles for these systems to work well and protect people from the constant threat from the sky. The big attack on Kyiv clearly showed how important strong air defense is right now. It showed the great danger that people face every day from these attacks from the air. Protecting cities from attacks like this is the most important job for Ukraine's military and government. They need help to do this important work. 4. A difficult past. Before the recent change in American policy, there was a difficult time. The United States government stopped sending military help to Ukraine. This was a big change from before. It stopped many weapons from reaching Ukraine. This decision caused many problems. The U.S. government explained why they stopped the help. They said their own supplies of weapons were low. They needed to keep these weapons for their own military needs. The Secretary of Defense, a person named Pete Hegseth, stopped the delivery of important weapons. Another person, the Deputy Secretary, first decided this. Mr. Hegseth then agreed. They said the U.S. military did not have enough of some weapons like Patriot missiles. They had used many weapons in other parts of the world, so they believed they needed to save what they had. Many weapons were ready to be sent to Ukraine. They were waiting at the border between Poland and Ukraine. But they were stopped. What kind of weapons? 30 Patriot missiles were stopped. These missiles are very important for stopping rockets and drones from the sky. Also, thousands of artillery rounds were stopped. There were 8,400 of these big bullets. Other types of missiles were also stopped, like Hellfire missiles and guided rocket missiles. This was a large amount of military help that did not arrive. When the weapons stopped, people in Ukraine were very worried. They needed these weapons to fight the war and protect their homes. Leaders in Kyiv felt very bad about it. One person said it felt like a nervous breakdown for many people there. They felt very unsure about the future. Their defense was weaker without the promised help. Countries in Europe were also unhappy. They are allies of Ukraine and want to see Ukraine strong. They were surprised and worried by the American decision. So, the past few days before the new promise were very difficult. Ukraine faced attacks while waiting for weapons that did not come. It was a time of great uncertainty. They did not know when or if the help would start again. This pause in military support made the fight harder. Ukraine had to use its own limited weapons. This time showed how important outside help is for Ukraine's defense in the difficult war. 5. A small gift. Ukraine heard the news from the United States. President Trump promised to send more weapons to help Ukraine. Officials in Ukraine felt thankful for this promise. They said they were very grateful for the support from the United States. This help is very important for Ukraine as it defends itself. The United States said it would send 10 Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles are a type of weapon that helps stop attacks from the sky. They are air defense missiles. They can shoot down enemy missiles and drones that Russia sends. This helps protect cities, buildings, and people on the ground. But Ukrainian officials also talked about the number of missiles. They said that 10 Patriot missiles is a very small number. They explained why this number is not enough. Russia often uses many weapons to attack Ukrainian cities at the same time. Sometimes, Russia sends hundreds of drones and missiles in one attack. For example, a recent attack on Kyiv used more than 500 drones and ballistic missiles. 10 Patriot missiles might only be enough to stop a small part of one big attack like that. Ukraine needs many more missiles to defend against these large and frequent attacks. It is very important for Ukraine to receive weapons regularly. They need a steady supply of missiles and other help from their partners. They also need to know that the help will continue. This is called predictability. A steady and predictable supply of air defense systems is critically important for Ukraine to defend its cities well over time. Without a regular supply, it is hard to plan defenses and keep people safe from the bombing. Even though 10 missiles is a small number, getting this promise was still seen as a positive sign. Before this, the United States had stopped sending weapons for a short time. This pause in aid had made many people in Ukraine very worried about their future defense. So receiving a promise of any weapons, even a small number, was better than getting nothing. One official said he was thankful that the U.S. was giving something. However, officials were clear that 10 missiles is not enough to defend all their cities from constant attacks. They need many more air defense missiles to stop Russia's rockets and drones. Protecting the sky from attacks is the top priority for Ukraine right now. They are working hard to get more air defense systems and missiles from other countries. They are also trying to make more weapons, like drones, inside Ukraine. So, the promise of 10 Patriot missiles was a small gift. It showed that the United States was willing to help again after a pause. But Ukraine needs much more support than this. They need a large and steady flow of help to defend their country in this long and difficult war. They want stability in the help they receive from their international partners. This stability is necessary to keep their cities safe from the constant air attacks. Ukrainian officials were working to get more details about the U.S. plan and hoping for more help in the future. 6. A new friendship. Ukrainian President Zelensky wanted a better friendship with President Trump. For some time, their relationship was not very strong. There was a meeting in the past that was difficult, but President Zelensky worked hard to make things better. He knew that a strong relationship with the United States president was very important for Ukraine. President Zelensky spoke positively about President Trump. He said that President Trump was a strong leader. He also listened to ideas from the United States government. He agreed to look at some of these ideas. For example, there was a suggestion from America about a ceasefire. This would be a time to stop the fighting in Ukraine for 30 days. President Zelensky said that Ukraine was willing to agree to this idea. There was also a deal made about business. American companies were given the chance to invest money in Ukraine. They could work with Ukraine's natural resources. This deal was another way for Ukraine to show that it wanted a close relationship with America. These actions helped to build trust between the two countries and their leaders. Recently, President Zelensky and President Trump had a phone call. This was a very important conversation. After the call, President Zelensky said that it was the best conversation they had ever had. This was a clear sign that the relationship was improving a lot. It showed that the hard work to build friendship was helping. When leaders have a good relationship, they can talk more easily. They can understand each other better. They can discuss difficult problems and find ways to help. The decision by the United States to send more weapons to Ukraine came after this good phone call. Many people believe that the better friendship between the two presidents played a part in this important decision. President Zelensky wanted to show President Trump that Ukraine was thankful for the help it received. He wanted to show that Ukraine was a good partner for America. This new level of friendship was a positive thing for Ukraine. It gave hope for more support in the future. Ukraine needs steady help to defend itself against attacks. Having a friend like the President of the United States is very helpful for Ukraine. The relationship was not always easy in the past, but now things seem to be getting better. The best conversation was a good start for a new chapter in their relationship. It showed that building personal connections between leaders can make a big difference. President Zelensky will continue to work on this friendship. It is key for Ukraine's defense and its future. A strong relationship means more trust, and more trust can lead to more support. This support is needed for the war. Ukraine depends on help from its friends. The better relationship with President Trump was a good development. It showed that trying to understand each other and finding common ground is important. The work to build this friendship continues. It is a process, but the results can be very important for Ukraine. 7. The world watches. The news from the United States was important for many countries. People around the world watched to see what would happen next. The U.S. president's words about sending help to Ukraine made other governments think and talk. This decision was big news everywhere, from Europe to Asia and beyond. Russia's government spoke about the news. They said they needed time to understand exactly what weapons the U.S. would send. A spokesperson for Russia said there was a lot of different information about the U.S. plans. He also said that countries in Europe were sending many weapons to Ukraine. Russia was watching the situation closely. They wanted to see what the American action would mean for the war. They were studying the details. Countries in Europe were also reacting. Germany is a big country in Europe. The leader of Germany offered to buy military equipment from the United States. He wanted to send this equipment to Ukraine to help them defend their country, but the U.S. president had a different idea. He told the German leader that Germany should sell some of its own military equipment instead. He also said the United States and Europe could perhaps share the cost of helping Ukraine. This shows that countries were discussing different ways to support Ukraine and who should pay for it. These conversations were happening at high levels. The change in American policy created many questions for governments everywhere. Would the United States continue to send help over a long time? Would this decision change the way the war was going? Would other countries also change their plans or send more help? Different countries had different ideas and feelings about the situation. Some countries felt worried about the fighting in Ukraine and the human cost. Others felt worried about what Russia might do next and how it could affect their own safety. The decision by the U.S. president was not just important for Ukraine and America. It was important for the whole world and for international peace and security. Leaders in many countries talked to each other on the phone and in meetings. They discussed the war in Ukraine and the new situation with American help. They thought about what this meant for safety and stability around the world. The news from America was a big topic of conversation in many places. People in different countries had different opinions. Some were happy that Ukraine might get more help. Some were not happy or felt worried about the future. The world was watching carefully to see what would happen next in the war and with the help for Ukraine. This moment was important for how countries work together. Many people hoped for a good outcome, but the future was still not clear. The reactions from different governments showed that the situation was complex. It was important for global stability. Every country had its own interests and worries about the war. The world waited to see the next steps. The eyes of the world were on Ukraine and the countries helping it. 8. What happens next? This part looks at what might happen next. The situation is still difficult for Ukraine. The war continues and it is a long fight. Ukrainian leaders are planning important meetings with their friends and partners. They want to talk with countries that are helping Ukraine. One meeting will be in Rome. President Zelensky is expected to go there. This meeting is about help for Ukraine's future recovery, but also about needed support now for the war. Another meeting is planned between Ukraine's defense leader and a special person from the U.S. government. This person works for President Trump. They will talk about weapons. Ukraine needs more weapons to defend itself from Russian attacks. They want to know if the U.S. will send more help and if this help will continue in the future. Before, the U.S. stopped sending weapons for a time. This made things very hard for Ukraine. Now, President Trump has promised to send some help again. But Ukrainian officials said it was a small amount. They say it is very important to get weapons regularly, not just sometimes. They need help that is stable and that they can know will come. This helps them plan their defense and protect their cities from attacks, especially from drones and rockets. So, a big question for the future is, will the U.S. continue to send help? Is this small promise the start of more help for the long term, or is it just a short change? Ukraine hopes for strong and steady support from the U.S. and other countries. This support is needed for the long time the war may last. Ukraine is also working hard to help itself. They understand that the war could be long and difficult, so they are trying to make their own weapons. They are focusing on air defense systems and missiles for them. These are very important for stopping Russian attacks from the air, which happen often. Air defense saves lives and buildings. Ukraine is trying to make more drones and missiles in their own factories. They are working to get money to make more weapons. They are making plans to fill their production lines with specific orders. Step by step, Ukraine is trying to build its own defense strong for the long war. They are working for their future defense. The meetings with other countries are important steps. They are a chance for Ukraine to ask for the help they need. They need more weapons to defend their people and their country from the continuous attacks. The future is uncertain. But Ukraine is not giving up. They are fighting and asking the world for support. They need this support to continue their defense in the months and years ahead. The world is watching to see what happens next and if Ukraine will get the help it needs for the long and difficult war. This is important for Ukraine's future and for peace in the region.